in the curries.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
You got a certain scripture, we'll try to get you put up on the board there.
I got a lot, so I'll just read it. Alright,
You want to hold the mic or just talking to
no,
them?
I'll just keep it there. What I'm gonna preach on is struggling with God and gaining your name, and it's gonna be on Jacob. It's gonna be out of Genesis.
Okay.
Let's see. Alright. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. And Esau determined in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. When the words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she summoned her younger son Jacob and said to him, listen, your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. So now, my son, listen to me. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay there with him a few days until your brother's anger subsides, until your brother's rage turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send for you and bring you back from there. Why should I lose you both in one day? Alright, and like one of the key things that I noticed from that, one of them is he's fleeing. You know, he's running for his life, and also his mother told him. She said, "Stay there until I send for you." And that's another big thing. You know, so that's kind of like putting like a mandate on him. You know, or a command. It's just like, don't come back. You know, but you know, God's ways are harder than ours. Alright, then Genesis 28:10 through 22. Alright, after that, Jacob, you know, his mom made excuses and everything. She's like, oh, these Canaanite women, they're worrying my soul to death. I don't want you to have a Canaanite wife. Go to my brother Laban and then pick up a woman from my own family, because these other ones are wearing out myself. So that's a good excuse for him. Like, okay, save pride, I'll go run. You know. Right, so Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He reached a certain place and spent the night there, because the sun had set. He took one of the stones from the place, put it there at his head, and lay down in that place. And he dreamed. A stairway was set on the ground. It was set on the ground. 1 second, lost my place. The ground with its top reaching heaven, and God's angels were going up and down on it. Yahweh was standing there beside him, saying, I am Yahweh, the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. I will give you and your offspring the land that you are now sleeping on. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out towards the west and the east, the north and the south. All the peoples on the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. Look, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. It's like that's pretty big right there too. I mean, like,
Right.
God just promised. He's like, this is gonna happen, and I'm not gonna go anywhere until this does. You're coming back. All right. The 31:10 through 13. All right. This is after he went there. He stayed for many years. He stayed for. First thing happens, he goes up and he sees like this girl, you know, just like with her flocks and everything, and she's very beautiful, and he's like, whoa. He goes up and he rolls the rock up, and then he goes ahead and waters her, her sheep, and then he's like, he sees her and she's beautiful, and he's like, oh, thank God, I love you. He comes up and he kisses her, and first he finds out that that it's his kinfolk. And he's like, yes, you're my wife. And then, he married, he kisses her, and then he's like, gets brought back to her family. And then he works out a deal, like, after being with her dad about a month, he's like, all right, her dad says, I can't have you working for me for free, set a wage. So he does that, and then he asks about marrying her. So he tells her that, work for me for 7 years, and then you can have her. Then he works for him 7 years, and then the dad pulls a fast one on him, and then gives him Leah, and then he wakes up angry, probably a hangover, because he didn't even realize that it was Leah the night before, and he'd been working for 7 years. And then after that, he tells him it's not our custom to give someone the younger before the older, so he has them work for 7 more days for the time of he has them before he can take Rachel to himself. He has to wait 7 days, and then he's able to take Rachel in unto him. And then after that, he works for 7 more years. And then after that, he just continued to gain flocks, and then he would set a wage, and then he would say, okay, if you get the spotted ones, then those are yours, and the ones that are plain, then those are mine. And every single time he set the wage for them, every time God will bless him to where it would always come off in his favor. So slowly but surely, it's just the promise of God has just been washing over him. He already gets 2 wives, and then both of the wives end up having just servants, and and then one wife was over here struggling because God opens her womb, Leah, because she can't have kids. And then the other one, she's so loved, you don't even care if she has kids, but she feels like she needs to compete with her sister, so she ends up giving her handmaid, then has kids there, and then the other one stops having kids, and then the other one starts going with it. Yeah. So either way, he has a multitude of a family, and God has blessed him with all kinds of just men servants and lady servants and slaves and animals and just gold. And his stepdad's starting to get angry because he's starting to have everything and he's got nothing, and he's back at the point where whenever he first showed up, he's back to where it was, to where all the wealth is done went over into his hand, even though he's fighting and struggling and striving and trying and setting every kind of thing that he can over him. All right, and here's Genesis 31:10. All right. Now Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's and has built this wealth from what belongs to our father. And Jacob saw how Laban's face, that his attitude towards him had changed, or was not the same. Then I'll jump down to 10. All right. When the flocks were breeding, I saw in a vision that was... I saw in a dream that the streaked, spotted, and speckled males were mating with the females. In that dream, the angel of God said, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Look up and see all the males that are mating with the flocks that are streaked, spotted, and speckled. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you poured oil on the stone marker and made a solemn vow to me. Get up, leave this land, and return to your native land. All right, so... he left first off. He was running in fear of his life. Yeah. And he obeyed his mom. And his mom told him not to go back. But God just told him to go back. Yeah. So it's better to obey God rather than man. Yeah. So he went ahead and his God just told him what to do. He isn't willing to call him God yet because he made a vow. He ain't back to that place of that vow. Right now, God's just been pouring his love and his goodness all over him and just showing him, I'm God. I'm the way. You listen to me. I'm the one. Come to me. All right. All right, now Genesis... Genesis 32, 3 through 12. Alright, Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He commanded them, You are to say to my lord Esau, This is why what your servant Jacob says. I have been staying with Laban and have been delayed until now. I have ox, donkeys, flocks, male and female slaves. I have sent this message to inform my lord in order to seek your favor. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, We went to your brother Esau. He is coming to meet you, and he has 400 men with him. Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people with him into 2 camps, along with the flocks, cattle, and camels. He thought, if Esau comes to this one camp and attacks it, the remaining one can escape.
Yeah.
Hey, he's already separating his whole family, just trying to save the remnant. He's going to die on one of the ends. He's going to lose half of his family, or he's going to die himself. So either way, there's going to be a lot of pain in this. And his heart is completely distressed because he's still looking back on what he left behind. He's looking back on what he left behind. His mother said that whenever his brother's anger subsided, she would send for him. He's still listening to the counsel of the ones around him. I mean, he had his blessing because he followed his mother's advice. The blessing was his brother's, but he listened to his mother, who talked him into going and putting fur on him and then letting her cook for him, and so that he could sneak in and see his father Isaac, and so he could steal his brother's blessing.
Yeah.
So his brother wants to kill him, and rightfully so. He said, is he not rightly named Jacob? Because he stole everything I have.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's an opportunist person. He comes in and his brother's starving, so he makes him sell him his birthright, you know, just for a cup of soup.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you got to be pretty dumb and dying to do that. You know, but dude's like, I'm dying. What's the point? You know, what's my birthright if I don't die? So he took advantage of a bad situation. He must have been hungry. It must have been bad. He must have been out there like hunting for days and days and came back completely starved, just because the hand of God was just blocking it, because he already had plans. He already knew what he was going to do with Jacob, and Jacob was going to be the one. He was going to be the one that was going to, it was already prophesied over him whenever they was younger, that the older was going to serve the younger. Alright. Then Jacob said, alright, here we go. Then Jacob said, after he already's worried and troubled and everything else, he's divided, he's at the end of his lot, he's trusted, he's leaned on his own understanding, but he started walking back. He knew he couldn't go back, but he's still, God's already been faithful to him. So he's going to talk to God a little bit. So then Jacob said, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, go back to your land and to your family, and I will cause you to prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown to your servant. Indeed, I crossed over this Jordan with my staff, and now have become 2 camps. Please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid of him. Otherwise he may come and attack me, the mothers and their children. You have said, I will come to you and prosper, and I will make your offspring like the sands of the sea, which cannot be counted. He's talking to God, and he's reminding God of what he said. You know, I mean, you gotta love it, because he remembers what God said to him. Right. You know, I mean, it's in his heart. He's counting on it, and he has to count on that to be able to go into that, because there's more than one. You know, of 2 directions. He could have went left or right too. You know, he could have went another way. He didn't have to run from Laban and go straight into the hands of death. He could have went over this way, or he could have gone over to this way. But he trusted what the Word of God said, and he fought past it. He fought past what it was that was behind him on both sides, because there was pain on both ends. This is where it comes in to where we gain our name through trusting God, not what's behind us and not what's in front of us, but keeping in step with Him, with His voice, and following it to the place where we need to go, to the next destination.
Absolutely.
Right. He spent the night there and took part of what he had brought with him as a gift for his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 20 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 10 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He entrusted them to his slaves and separated herds, and said to them, go on ahead of me and leave some distance between the herds. And he told the first one, when my brother Esau meets you and asks, what do you belong to? Where are you going, and whose animals are these ahead of you? Then tell him, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are gifts sent to my lord Esau, and look, he is behind us. He also told the second one, the third, and everyone who was walking behind the animals, say the same thing to Esau when you find him. You are also to say, look, at your servant Jacob is right behind us. For he thought, I want to appease Esau with the gifts that is going ahead of me. After that I can face him, and perhaps he will forgive me. He already knows the promise of God and what's ahead of him and what was behind him. but right now he's trying to pay it off in his own way.
Yeah.
You know, but either way, he's still following God.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's still walking through it. He's still struggling with God. He's still moving on, and he's keeping on with the promise. It's just he's trying to figure it out, and he's costing himself something right now.
That's
Right now, he's losing some of the blessing that God's gave him because he's trying to buy into what it was that God already had in front of him.
Amen.
He's trying to work his way into it. Whenever God already ordained it in front of him, it's
Amen.
already there. He already said this is what's going to happen.
Kind of a weasel on it.
Exactly.
Kind of weasel.
Alright, so Jacob was left alone. When you're alone, that's when the pain comes. Jacob was left alone, and the man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not defeat him, he struck Jacob's hip socket as they wrestled and dislocated his hip. Then he said to Jacob, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me."
Yeah.
"What is your name?" the man asked Jacob. He replied, "Your name will be no longer Jacob," he replied. "Your name will no longer be Jacob," he said. "It will be Israel, because you have struggled with God and with man and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he answered, "Why do you ask my name?" And he blessed him there.
Come on now.
One of the things that God blessed me with right here is he just gave Jacob his name, and Jacob still ain't happy. He's trying to find his. He's done deceived and stole everything from everybody around him.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, it's kind of like whenever Peter was asking about John, he's like, "What about your servant John?" He's like, "No, you follow me." It's like, what is it if he stays alive until I come back? You know, he was focusing on the wrong thing. He needs to focus on, hey, I'm Israel. I got a new name. He needs to focus on his name instead of anybody else's.
Right.
You know, what he needs to do with God instead of anybody else. You know, God wants him to realize what his mission is. You know, and what he's supposed to do. He is fixing to be a father of many nations, just like his father.
Yeah.
You know, he is the seed that is going to bless the entire earth. You know, they're all coming from his his loins. His whole family, is going to spread out, and the promise is already there. You know, and he touched his hip. You know, every single step that man took for the rest of his life, he will remember that he struggled with God, and he will remember that he has a new name because he struggled with God. He put something into it. Exactly. It changed his walk. You know, he had to put something into it, and there was no way to go back. You're not undoing that limp. That limp's permanent. You know, you're going to walk the same way the rest of your life, and there's no way to go back. There's only forward. You have a new name. You're not the same man that you used to be. You were changed.
Come on now.
You struggled with God, and you prevailed. You struggled with man, and you prevailed. You come to the end of the promise. This is the place where God was speaking on from the beginning, and he met it, and he struggled, and he overcame, and God is with him, and he's willing to call God his God now. Alright, now I call this the testimony. Now after all of this, now Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming towards him with 400 men. He divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two female slaves. He put the female slaves and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Yeah, favorites. He himself, and I kill the rest, it's okay. You know, he himself went on ahead and bowed to the ground 7 times until he approached his brother. He's really groveling now. All right. But Esau ran to him, met him, hugged him, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Then he wept. When Esau looked up and saw the children, he asked, "Who are these with you?" He answered, the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the female slaves and their children approached him and bowed down. Leah and her children also approached and bowed down. And then Joseph and Rachel approached and bowed down. So Esau said, "What do you mean by this whole procession I'm at?" Alright, right here, trying to, I guess you could call this religion or whatever, or, just like trying to, put your 2 cents into the stuff that God's already foreordained leaves you looking kind of stupid. You know, it leaves the church looking dumb. It leaves us looking weak. It leaves us, people questioning our testimony because we didn't completely follow God. We listened and we had faith and we struggled and we was walking in quicksand, but we still made it through it, you know. But you know, you look kind of dumb when you're all covered up and everything. So that's what it did. It had him looking, you know, with a little bit of dishonor in front of his brother, instead of coming back from what he came from everything that he went, with his head held high and his whole family standing strong behind him, because he is the leader. He's behind all of them, cowardly approaching someone that he thought that was going to take his life.
Come on now.
Whenever he was following his God, he was walking into it. He still followed God, but he did it in a cowardly manner. But God still rewarded that faith. God still rewarded it and just took him right to the end. Just Genesis 35. God said to Jacob, "Get up, go to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother." So Jacob said to his family and all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods that are among you. Purify yourselves and change your clothes. We must get up and go to Bethel. I will build an altar there, and the God who answered me in my day of distress, He has been with me everywhere I go." God's good. After he got his name, he was able to consecrate himself and to consecrate his family. They were able to stand up, and they were able to be Israel. They were able to be God's people. And he was able to, from that point on, really set the seeds and to do the things that God had put in front of them, and to do everything that God had planned for them.
Amen.
That's it.
That's good, brother.
There's a part of Jacob I have a hard time understanding. After he went back and did all that, it was 2 more years when he had 12 sons he had.
It's confusing.
You know,
Got so many kids.
it finally came a time where that land got in such a famine that it's like if they would have stayed there, they would have died. That's when they had to all go to Egypt.
To visit with Joseph.
Yeah, that's, you know, I'm thinking, what? You know, that land has been nothing but trouble over there all this time. And then they spend 400 years in Egypt. Just to get back to where they started 40 years before, right?
And then still didn't completely conquer it because of unbelief.
Yeah.